recommend that you do is get a pair of scissors, not your scalpel scissors, and then just snip, snip, snip through the ribs, snip, 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 then you'll lift that piece off and you can throw that away. You will not see these blood vessels, the superior vena cava and the superior and the brachiocephalic trunk, for example, because there will be a tannish brown structure from here to here. That's the thymus. You have to rip it out. Okay, and only after you rip out the thymus will you see these structures. Okay. Now, on this one, I took apart the, I removed the veins just so you could get a better view of the arteries. So let me just kind of look at this for a second. So here's the aorta. It ascends, it forms an arch, and then it'll descend. Notice that underneath the probe right now is the brachiocephalic trunk. So on the right side, there is a thick blood vessel that you don't find on the left side. All right? I don't have a good model of this, and so if I want to ask you the brachiocephalic trunk, I would probably use the cat. The right subclavian comes off the brachiocephalic trunk. The right common carotid comes off the brachiocephalic trunk. In cats, but not in humans, the left common carotid also comes off the brachiocephalic trunk. But once again, that shouldn't confuse you, because if I'm going to ask the carotid arteries, I will ask them here, all right? So here you can see the trachea and the throat, and there are red arteries on either side. That's the common carotid. So if I ask you the common carotid, I'll ask it here, and it's exactly the same as it is in humans, so you can't get confused. If I ask this is the brachiocephalic trunk, all right? And it's exactly as it would be in humans. And so even though there is a minor difference in the origin of this blood vessel, you won't be asked that, so I don't think that you can get confused. Now, the left subclavian comes directly off of the arch of the aorta in the cat, just as in the human. And let's face it, if I want to ask a subclavian artery, I don't really have a good example of the models, and the right subclavian is so small that I would be almost certainly asking the left subclavian. And so that's an easy one to ask in the cat. From the common carotids, if we want to go to the brain, well, this is all that we can do. All right? I'm not going to ask you the internal carotid. I'm not going to ask you the vertebral in the cat. The vertebral is going to take you a while to find. And the internal carotid is variable. We don't need to go into this, but there is a little bit of a different circulation pattern with the human brain and the cat brain. Humans have a bigger brain that needs more blood. And so the blood vessels are a little bit different. No need to go into that unless you want to. And so therefore, common carotid, and that's all we need to look at here. The vein that's coming from the neck region is the jugular vein. All right? So I'll get to the veins in just a second. But there's a red artery in the neck, that's the common carotid, a blue vein in the neck, that's the jugular. Now once again, I don't want to belabor this point. This is the jugular vein. Let's call it the jugular vein and leave it at that. The reason I'm saying that is because there is an external jugular, there is an internal jugular, and it's just a little bit different as you go from cats to humans. But for our purposes, it's not important, all right? So if we just call this the jugular, we're being accurate, and we can leave it at that. If you wanted to go deeper, there's a slight difference between cats and humans, but once again, I don't think it's a major concern to us. As we come back from the brain, the jugular vein here fuses with the subclavian vein coming from the arm, and it forms in blue here the brachiocephalic vein. Note that there's a brachiocephalic vein on both sides. The brachiocephalic vein then empties into the superior vena cava. Now, my other brachiocephalic vein isn't as visible, and that shouldn't be too surprising. Veins have thinner walls. We know that, okay, from today's quiz maybe even. And so therefore, as the blue latex is injected into the cat, it's not that uncommon that it moves farther in the thick-walled arteries than it does in the thin-walled veins. In fact, in some places you might actually find, look, like this blue, ooh, what's this huge vein? It's not a huge vein, that's just where the latex spilled. Seriously. I mean, it broke the vein and it spilled out a little bit. And so some people find this huge, big blue structure and they think, it's this anatomical structure they don't know, and it's just a pool of latex. So sometimes you don't see the veins as well as you'd expect. It varies from cat to cat. So feel free to check out, the other people at your lab table or the lab table next to you and see what their cats look like. Okay. So here we have an arch of the aorta, a brachiocephalic trunk there, a left subclavian, the common carotid goes to the brain, and then we have a jugular, a brachiocephalic vein, a superior vena cava. That wasn't that many. Okay? As we go to the arm, brachiocephalic trunk or left subclavian again. We get to the armpit area, that's the axillary. We get to the upper arm, that's the brachial. Now, you can, and I encourage you to, cut through the forearm muscles. You're going to have to use your scalpel to cut through the forearm muscles if you want to see the radial and the ulnar. You can. You won't see the veins. I've never seen the veins. The latex just doesn't go that far. Feel free to try that. But I'm going to just say now, when I ask it of you, I'll ask it on the human model. I mean, we've got a huge human model, so this is